internet, cat gifts, and everyone else. Finally, Friday's about ready to start. Oh, look at we've got some awesome people in the chat already. Squirrel Brian is there. Malone is there. The one J. Michael T is there. Let's get some more people to come in and chat with the rest of us. And we will have, I think, an interesting show coming up in, what do we got here? 30 seconds. Hold on to your butts. Finally, Friday is being brought to you this week by Major Spoilers VIP and Patreon members from around the world. You can show your support for everything we do at Major Spoilers and get in on a bunch of bonus content. Join a growing community by pointing that browser to patreon.com/Major Spoilers, signing up today. Well, hello. Happy Friday, everyone. Oh, I'm so glad to see you. It's been a very, very busy week for me, so I feel like I need to kick back and talk with some awesome people about how their weeks have been, and here we are. There's one person I do want to talk to because COVID has really screwed up a lot of industries. Well, pretty much everybody's industry. But probably no industry is more impacted right now financially in the bottom line than the movie and film industry. And for many actors and actresses, I think that has caused a lot of problems. So joining me here today is one Ashley Victoria Robinson. Ashley, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Not
it's
a problem.
Friday.
I know. I'm glad to have you here. We actually almost didn't have you here, though. You were supposed to be on set, I believe, today. And you can't go to set because you didn't get a COVID test back in time.
Yes. Also, like, LA is mostly shut down for productions right now.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, and because the numbers are spiking, COVID tests are taking a lot longer to come back. Like, I took one at the end of November. I took one mid-December last year, and you would get your results back in like 6 hours, maybe 11 hours tops. This one took a full 2 days. It actually went all the way to San Dimas to hang out with Bill and Ted for a little bit before it came back. But it did come back negative, so that's good. That's what we focus on.
So I'm curious, what is the procedure? So let's just say you get hired for a job. You have to go on set. What is the procedure then when it comes to COVID and getting the test done and all of that? Can you walk us through that? Because I'm very curious, and I'm sure our listeners are too.
So typically what happens is when you get booked for a job, whether that's going to be in 2 days, in a week, that same day you immediately go and you get tested. If it's a big company, like Warner Brothers has their own testing site. If anyone is familiar with the Warner Brothers studio tour, the parking garage that's kind of across from the studios where you would park to go to the tour, that parking garage is now just COVID test. So you go in, you see the weird Conan-shaped shuttle van that's been parked there for like a year. You go in, you get tested, you leave. And then you get a little email back that says you've been cleared to work. So you forward that to whoever their COVID officer is. And then either 2 days before or the day before, depending on the production, you get another test and you get another email. And if you've been cleared for work, then you get tested every day you shoot from that point forward.
So when you
Smaller productions have to rely on some of the other services. Like, I don't know who Warner Brothers works with, but like Warner Brothers and Disney have their own sort of in-house setup. It's different if you're working for like a smaller production house or commercial.
Mm-hmm. So when you come to set then on the day of your shoot, you do a rapid test, one of those quick 5-minute, 15-minute tests, and then they just double check and they go against all your other paperwork that you've done, and then that clears you for that day?
You do a rapid test and that clears you to work that day. And then you also do the PCR test, which is the like longer, more intensive. I don't know what makes it better. I didn't study science. And then usually the next morning or the next day you get the results from that. And it's basically, you do that in case everybody tests negative that morning, but over somebody becomes sick over the next couple of weeks, they can figure out like who the likely carrier was.
So it's not something like Ashley shows up to set. Let's just say you show up to set, you come clean, but Bill shows up because San Dimas High School is closed, and so he shows up, and even though he tested negative a couple of days before, his day of test shows that he's positive. What then happens to Bill?
He gets sent home.
And then what happens to the rest of the production? Does it shut down? Or do they say, hey, everybody, you may have been exposed. We're going to have to go test again tomorrow. Or, we have to send you off to the other test.
I've never been in that particular situation. I think it would depend on what the person's job was and how many other people they're involved with. When you go to set, you get a zone. So you get like A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, red, yellow, green, depending on what the production is. And so like actors and performers, because you have to be unmasked to do your job, you're always at the highest level. And then like PAs who are going between different jobs will be like in the middle. And then like a grip who's just doing one specific job will be at the lower. So I think it would depend on the zone that you're in. That's never happened to me. I've never gone to a set and someone has tested positive. But I have worked on sets where they had previously been closed down for being positive, or they'd had a lot of cases. So it kind of depends on, I think, how strict your COVID compliance officer is, because there's usually between 1 and 7 people, depending on how big the set is, whose only job is to be like, you need to stand further apart. You need to wash your hands.
Oh, interesting. That's good that there's somebody on set that's doing that.
Where they'll push you around.
The joke whenever I was younger, Ashley, you probably didn't experience this, but, especially if you went to more stricter schools, that, there would be people at the school dances that were making sure that, you weren't dancing too close with one another. You had to maintain at least 10 inches between you and your partner, those kind of things. Yeah, pretty much that. But so it's nice to know that there are people, or depending, again, I guess, on the production and the size of the production, people on set that are just like, you two over there, separate. You're too close together. But the COVID compliance officer is not the same as the producer or the showrunner of that particular project, right?
No, it's a completely independent role. I'm not really sure how they pull those people. I don't know if those are people who typically do crew work or if those are medical professionals, because the people who are there giving you your tests, like those are nurses and doctors who have been said they're not like film people.
So
but on one set that I was on, that is a genre show, people were doing a very bad job. They're literally pushing people away with sticks to be like, you've got to stand further apart.
And was that because of the nature of the production, or just people hadn't been around each other and were extremely touchy-feely?
No, it wasn't even that. Just when you're on a set, particularly a television set, it's a lot of people in a very small amount of space. So people just literally standing too close together.
Oh, okay.
And being negligent, because you're used to having a lot of strangers touch you. It's like going to Comic-Con in a lot of ways. Yeah.
So how does that impact your call time? Because, call time, depending on what your position is and whether, how much time you have to get into hair and makeup and everything, you have to show up on set at a certain time. Grips and all the other positions have to show up on set at a certain time to begin work. How has having to do the rapid test affected call times? Do you have to show up an extra hour early? How's that working?
Yeah. So typically if it's an episode of television and you're going to be on set all day, crew call is start of day, because crew call is when most of the people doing the technical aspects will show up. It's when the director will show up. People like best boys and grips, people who like lay the electrical or crafty who are making your food, they'll get there a little bit earlier. So instead of usually being called with crew call, say if that's supposed to be at 6 o'clock in the morning, then I would be called at 5 o'clock in the morning. Also because they know that actors are idiots who don't know where anything is, so that you have enough time to get lost, get tested, and get breakfast before crew call.
Yeah, I would just imagine. Does that actually then shorten?
From an economic...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, finish.
I was going to say, from an economic standpoint, it's great because you get paid for an extra hour.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
Not really doing anything.
That's what I was going to ask, because either you're getting paid for an extra hour, or your production is an hour shorter because of people standing in line to get tested. And it sounds like everybody's having to cough up the extra money to keep you on set for an extra hour.
Yeah, and also they've shortened days, so you can't shoot longer than 10 hours.
Oh, okay.
Now that's 10 hours from crew call, so from that sort of when everybody shows up, crew call, minus either 1 or 2 hours for lunch. So you could still have a 12-hour day, but you aren't getting like 16-hour days, 17-hour days, 18-hour days like we heard so much from like superhero shows and genre shows and things like Game of Thrones. You cannot do that. I mean, you can, but you face a pretty steep penalty.
Yeah.
And you might be shut down. I know for theatrical film, there might be a little bit more wiggle room on that. But for television, it's like cut at a 10-hour day. So you're not making as much in terms of you will not be making overtime. But you also, the days when, so the day that I get booked, if I go do a test that same day, I get paid a day rate to go
Oh, nice.
test.
Okay.
And the tests only take like 10 minutes.
Yeah. That's not too bad then. That's a little bit extra money then. So I'm curious then. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that, and as you said, a lot of productions are currently shut down in Los Angeles because of the increase in the spike that's going on. I think we all know the answer, but were you busier in 2019 than you were in 2020 and now into 2021, even though we're just a month in?
Yes and no.
Oh, interesting.
So I do a lot of stage, even in Los Angeles, and obviously haven't been able to do that since I think my last show closed at the end of March.
Oh, of
the beginning of March, beginning of last March.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I remember it was like right when people were starting to talk about COVID, and we were like concerned about. We were all contracted to do another show together with that company, so it was like, ooh, what are rehearsals going to look like? What are we going to do with that? And then I do a lot of hosting and a lot of things like this around the city, and obviously that's shut down a lot. But on the other hand, December and November were very busy for me because a lot of stuff was ramping up to shoot because they knew that in January a lot of things were going to shut down again and that they wouldn't be able to shoot. So I was getting contacted a lot. I shot a lot in December and November as well. So yes and no, but for different things. And then 2021's been pretty dry so far.
So far
if you're
it has.
hiring in Toronto, let a girl know.
But I also find it, let's step way back even to the audition process. Your whole audition process has changed because of COVID too, right? I think we've talked about this before, but for those that are just kind of tuning in and finding out what's the state of Hollywood with COVID, Ashley, let us fill us in on the audition process.
So typically you get called to the third floor of a weird office building to a casting director's office, and you go in and you do your scene with the casting director, with the casting associate. Sometimes if it's a commercial, they'll pair you up in a group or they'll give you another person to interact with. But typically for first round, you're all alone.
Mm-hmm.
Every once in a while, if somebody's shooting out of town, like I auditioned for the film Glass.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that was I self-taped that because he was off, M. Night Shyamalan was off doing something else, somewhere else, not in California. So we would do a little bit of self-taping, and now it's all self-tapes, which means it's me in front of this wall with this sign taken down, with Jason reading with me. And that's kind of it. And I like being in the room much better because you get a chance to interact with people. People get to see your vibe. You can be funny. And if you can bond with people or make a connection, then your performance is almost secondary, because a big consideration is, do you want to hang out with this person on set all day for 12 hours, 10 hours, 18 hours? So it's all been self-tapes, and it's not my preference.
Yeah.
But I will happily do them.
so you're recording your tryout, your audition, and then sending it off. You haven't done any like live Zoom auditions?
I have not. I had done some before the pandemic, but I haven't done any in the pandemic. You typically only do a live if it's a chemistry test, or like if it's a callback, if you're sort of down the road. Usually the first round is just like you send in a tape. Okay.
All right. And then you get booked, you get hired, you get booked. It goes through your agent. It goes to, all the proper channels. As we said, you're doing the COVID test, a couple of days before and the day of, and then when you're on set. And you're mostly doing extra parts, is what I'm guessing, background extras, or are you doing some main in front of camera work?
It's been a bit of both. I'm trying to take every opportunity I can right now, also because to remain in the SAG, the Screen Actors Guild, you have to book like so many hours. You have to work so many production hours, and that hasn't been restricted or rescinded since the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to do everything I can, and I'm happy to sit around and read my book all day.
So you get on set, you're wearing a mask. You're wearing your face covering. Are you using like over the ear masks when you're on set? I mean, at some point they got to put hair and makeup on you, and I know like Candace Patton on Flash, she had mentioned she was wearing the face mask and she'd take it off and it'd smear her makeup. How is hair and makeup being dealt with for that?
So typically each production provides you with the PPE that they want you to wear. So when I worked on a Disney show and they gave us the N94s, they were very tight and uncomfortable. People had the lines on their faces. When we were going on to set, we were given face shields, we were given gloves, we were given hand sanitizer. So usually you have to wear whatever they give you that day because people will show up with the wrong masks or people will show up with bandanas and things like that. Hair and makeup is pretty standard. You get it at the beginning, and then it's just a last looks touch up before you shoot for camera. So that basically means when they're ready to roll, the director yells last looks, and all the makeup people, and they're like full regalia, like face shields, masks, and the garbage bag ponchos.
They come
okay. And they make you look presentable, and then they flee so that you can start shooting again.
Yeah. Now I've seen like Kim's Convenience, the actors are showing behind the scenes stuff, and they've got the face shield on a stick that they can just walk around and hold in front of their face. It sounds like every production is different. Are you doing that kind of a face mask, or you're just usually doing a face covering of some kind?
Yeah, we're usually doing the mask and then the shield that has like the glasses. It's basically like glasses frames with the shield in front of you.
Yeah.
And those are very effective, but they do make it difficult to go through the world with because they fog up.
Oh, I'm sure.
Real quick.
You know, I'm probably using a non-compliant gaiter here whenever I go out and about, and even me going in to pay for gas for my truck, the glasses just instantly fog up. So it's a real pain in the butt for me. So Scroll Brian is saying, what Disney show? I don't think Ashley can talk about any stuff that hasn't been released yet. And so that November and December stuff probably isn't going to arrive until like March or April. And I'm sure that once...
Yeah, or summer maybe.
Or summer maybe. So I'm sure once that stuff is out, then she can talk about it. But publicly, she can't say anything right now about it. So... That's just one of those NDA things, and especially if she's working on a Disney show, I'm surprised she can even say that she worked on a Disney show. Because man,
well, there's a lot of Disney shows.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking of NDAs from Disney, and especially Marvel, Disney, and Apple that I've had to sign in the past are just like, you do not talk about this until we give you the okay to talk about this. Don't even hint at it, or we will come after
I'll
you.
Also say, Disney's a big umbrella term that can encompass many networks.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Oh yeah, maybe she's working on She-Hulk. I think that's confirmation right there, ladies and gentlemen, that she's working on She-Hulk.
I'm taller than Tatiana Maslany. I could.
Oh wow, nice. So what else? So what are some other things that maybe the general public isn't aware of when it comes to actors working on set during COVID? What are some other things that you haven't shared with us yet?
The biggest thing that's changed, and this is going to sound really petty, I think, but it's Crafty. So Crafty is where you go for snacks.
Yeah.
It's different. You go to a different place for your mealtime, but typically at any time during the show, if you want like a cup of coffee or a snack or some gum or breath mints, which are like a big thing, you go. They have a variety of food. In LA, it's typically at a food truck, and they'll give you whatever you want. And you can still do that. But in the before times, it would be like a bowl of M&Ms, and you would stick your dirty hand in it. Yeah, or like, you'd use the scoop and put it on your plate. And something that I always heard in theater school was like, don't touch the communal food because you'll get sick.
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while you break it because if you're like me, you love M&Ms. But now it is like a man, or a woman, but it's always been men in my experience, behind a glass. You scream at them 3 or 4 times what you want so that they can hear you, and then you get the whole pack of gum instead of just the little one piece of gum, which is what you use. So it's bigger snacks now.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a plus. I just know that was always a weird thing for me whenever I was producing stuff or directing stuff and being on set, and there'd be somebody would come in with craft services stuff, and they just pour a whole bowl of M&Ms into a jar or something, and I'm just like, oh man. Seeing everybody who's walking around lifting heavy, dirty pipes and sweating and wiping their hands, and it's like, oh, the last thing I want to do is reach into that peanut M&M jar and taste whatever they've been touching. So I can appreciate that. That's a change. Now, do you think going forward that some of these changes will remain even when mask mandates go away, and even though everyone has been vaccinated? Do you think some of these things, like how craft services is handled, will stick around, or any of these other procedures that people are going through will stick around?
I think maybe for 6 months tops,
Mm.
because it impairs the efficiency of a set. And like I said, I know, like, especially the craft service stuff probably sounds very, very trivial, but when you have like hundreds of people on a set trying to do this, trying to do that, you're all needed at different times. Um, a lot of also being on set is like standing around and talking to each other in hushed voices. You can't do that anymore. Like when I joked earlier about like sitting around and reading my book, like that is a lot of what it is. So I think it'll probably stick around for the first 6 months because we're all going to try to remain cautious. But then I think after that, just because it impedes how quickly you can shoot, it impedes how many pages you can shoot, and time is money, and it's like quick, faster, good. Like that Venn diagram and that triangle is very real. So like I don't foresee, unless somebody is very particular about it.
Yeah.
Because if the star of the show or the guest star or somebody on set is really particular, then the set will take extra precautions right now.
Hmm.
So I could see if I don't know, Glenn Close, somebody I've never worked with, but if she's very serious about it, then the set will remain serious about it. But I think if it's a bunch of people who are fresh-faced and new and just happy to work, that I think we're going to see that all just out the window.
To me, it's
the M&Ms
super.
will be back.
For me, it's super weird because I've got a bunch of students that have to do productions for their classwork, and for me, I'm like, look, I'm trying to make these projects as single person as possible because I don't want to be responsible for you guys working in groups, someone not following procedure, and then someone getting sick because of that, and any implications that could come from them being sick. On the other hand, there are other instructors and there are other projects that are just like, oh no, we've got a squad of 20 people that we need to go and do this basketball game or go and stream this football game live. And I see the students, no regard to, keeping space between them. Some of them are wearing masks, some of them are not. And I'm just like, oh man, this is super problematic for me. So I've had a real issue with just on the, and again, super small production side, not as big as what you're doing, of trying to convince people that we need to follow procedures. And I don't think you're aware of what's going on other places and how big of an impact and how big of a role safety during this time for your entire cast and crew is important. Because if the main actor gets sick, if Ashley, heaven forbid, Ashley gets sick with COVID and the test comes back negative and she's on the set being what is asymptomatic and passes it on to the lead actor or actress of the series, and then the production has to get shut down for 4 weeks, that could be devastating for a future career for Ashley, because all they have to do is track it back to, well, Ashley got everybody sick. Maybe we won't hire her on the next shoot or something like that. Not that anybody would ever not hire Ashley unless they've got a screw loose, but that's something that I think could happen, right? That stigma of you got us sick, we're not hiring you again.
It's also just devastating for everybody involved, because for a lot of people, particularly people below the lines means like not the famous people that you hear about working on the show. That's their livelihood. So there are families and husbands and wives and partners and children who are all dependent on that as well. And so for me personally, I try to be very careful in all aspects, because I would be gutted if I was the one who passed that along. I've just assumed by this point that I am asymptomatic. Yeah. Because I live in a city where 1 in 3 people has it, and I have been on set several times.
The last I heard, the infection rate here in Hayes was like 99%. So it's like I've either had it, and back in October when I got really sick and just passed it off as I was outside in shorts in 20-degree weather for too many days in a row. Or I've been asymptomatic and have been, exposing my wife and kids to that. So it's just a really weird time. But I'm glad that you were able to come in and kind of share some experiences of being on set and an actor at the time of COVID and some of the things that are challenging for you. And certainly this is challenging for everyone. Hopefully we're starting to turn the corner and we can get more vaccines out to everyone. Do you think showing your vaccine card or showing your vaccination record will be part of the hire process or not? No?
I think it will depend on the production. I live in a state where anti-vaxxers are prominent.
Here. Same here.
You can send your child to school without vaccines. So I think if we won't think of the children, I think we're certainly not going to think of the adults.
Ashley, thank you so much thank you for joining us today. Where can people find more of you and follow you on all the socials?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Ashley V. Robinson. The V is very important. And that's where you'll be able to hear me talk about these shows when they go on the air. And then I can tell you who was really nice from the cast. And I will not say who was not nice. That's impolite. And then I would also ask people to go to superbestfriendcomic.com. That is Jason Inman's Kickstarter right now. It's really kick butt. He just crossed 10,000.
Nice.
And like all Kickstarters that surpass their goal, the more we keep funding it, the more we check it out, the sooner to Super Best Friend 2.
That's right. Very good. Thank you so much, Ashley. And don't forget, everybody, if you are a gold level patron or higher, Saturday, January 23rd, 1 o'clock p.m. Central Time, it is the monthly VIP live chat, where we'll give you some insight into what's going on behind the scenes at Major Spoilers. And most importantly, you get to ask your questions about anything related to Major Spoilers in the industry from our perspective. There have already been some really good questions that have already started to float in. It's always a very good time, and it's very informative so that you know what we are doing with your money as we continue to grow Major Spoilers far into the future. You can find out more and you can sign up if you're not already at patreon.com/Major Spoilers. Ashley, any final words before we're out of here?
Wear a mask, stay safe, make good choices, support Major Spoilers.
There you go. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. We will see you next time when it's finally Friday.